Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. This is the post-fight review for the fight between Demsey McKean, the world-rated Australian heavyweight, and Kiki Toa Leutele, who was from New Zealand, who was unbeaten heading into this fight. And he believed that he won this fight, although Demsey McKean got the decision on the cards in a fight which actually McKean had to overcome some adversity, and we'll come to that. But the scorecards, 98-92 on 2 and 97-93. The two 98-92s, I think that was a little bit harsh on Leutele because he actually did do some good work in there. But in terms of the fight proper, so the first couple of rounds, very tight, very even, a feeling out process, and the fight started to heat up from round 3. You had more action, Leutele looking for that right hand, starting to land it, McKean, working body and head, using the jab. But it was round 4 where things really started to get amongst it in terms of the action. There was more sort of back and forth, and you had a cut open up over the eye of Demsey McKean. He was caught with a number of right hands, rocked multiple times in that round, and certainly at one point towards the back end of round 4, you sort of thought, is he going to sort of see out the round here? Are we going to see an upset? Because he was hurt. He was hanging on for dear life, and ultimately, though, he held on, literally held on, and saw out the round. And round 5, a cut opens up as well. So now you have McKean having to deal with a cut over his left eye, which is some of it running into his eye. The right eye, there was some blood running down his face as well. And the commentary was talking about a possible head cut as well. Not sure what was happening with that, but definitely cuts over both eyes and having to battle back into this fight. But he did rally well. Round 5, round 6, round 7, especially after that sort of tumultuous round 4 where he was hurt multiple times and potentially on the verge of being stopped there. But I thought McKean was doing a better job in those rounds after round 4. Landing some of the more clean, effective work in this fight. And this was not a classic by any stretch, this fight, but it was a case where you had one guy in Kiki Toa Leutele coming forward, applying pressure. But the thing was, it wasn't always effective pressure. So he would come forward, look for right hands, but not always having success. Sometimes he would, but he was also guilty of smothering his own work. And another feature of this fight was McKean was seemingly allowing himself to be pushed around at times. Like he looked better in this fight when he was sort of maintaining center ring at range, working the jab and looking for left hands to head and body. That was when he was controlling the action. But often he would sort of have a bit of a spurt, 15, 20 seconds, and then back up to the sort of the ropes, or allow himself to be barreled into one of the corners, and that's when Kiki Toa Leutele would let his own hands go and have the majority of his success. So yeah, McKean, I didn't like to sort of see that from him because it was almost he'd get his work done, submit to the ropes, or allow himself to be pushed back and just take a bit of a rest on the ropes, where he was a bit of a sitting duck and he did take some punches. But yeah, after round 4, the level of success for Kiki Toa Leutele, it was mixed, and I sort of thought there were a number of close rounds here, and heading into that final round I was thinking, well, the scores may be close here, but I mean there were just so many sort of tight rounds. But there were rounds where I thought McKean was just, there was just a cleaner, more effective work that he was landing. But I had this a little bit closer than those 98-92 cards. I thought that was a little bit cruel to Kiki Toa Leutele. But McKean finished out the fight quite strong. He came aggressive in that final 10th round, and probably for him felt a little bit relieved to sort of get through it, given that he had to go through 4 or 5 rounds with 2 cuts. And obviously he was taking a couple of shots there in that fight, and did have a few hairy moments. I didn't have a problem with McKean getting the decision, but Kiki Toa Leutele, in his post-fight interview, he said that he thought he won, that he wanted the rematch and said, let's do that. And the crowd, there seemed to be no real sort of ambition for that. There was not a lot of sort of applause or sort of cheering him on for that sort of comment. But he said that McKean never really hurt him once in that fight. And yeah, that seemed to be the case, that while McKean was landing some good shots at times, the jab was working well at different spots. He was sort of hitting him to the body and also catching him with left hands and sometimes right hooks, uppercuts as well. There were some uppercuts landing, but just not anything that you sort of thought, yeah, Leutele is in trouble here. So from that standpoint, yeah, he was right, but not sure the fight was as close as he was thinking. Ultimately, what let Kiki Toa Leutele down a little bit was smothered his own work, but also he didn't throw enough punches. Sometimes he was in position to really let his hands go, but he would just throw the one shot or just, a short combination instead of really letting his hands go when he did have McKean in sort of precarious positions, bailed up on the ropes. So that I guess, he'll learn from that. This was his first career loss. In terms of McKean post-fight, he said that he's keen for a quick turnaround, that this was a very tough fight. He enjoyed it. He felt that there was some ring rust, not just for him, but also for his opponent, and he said he wants to be back out in July. But given those couple of cuts, perhaps that ambition, maybe that's a little bit soon, given they will need a little bit of time to heal there. And potentially going forward, is McKean a bit of a sort of a cut problem waiting to happen? He's rated in the WBO and the IBF towards the back end of both rankings. So it'll be interesting to see the what next, because he's starting to max out at sort of the Australian, New Zealand level in terms of the opponents that he can get. And if I wouldn't mind seeing is Junior Farr and Demsey McKean. That's a good fight for both. Lucas Brown's also talked about being open to fighting Demsey McKean. I guess if the money's right for Brown, he'll take that fight, but it comes down to money in the end. Can they sort of get the bag? I mean, and that would be more of a sort of stay busy, and I guess really tell us where McKean is at, because we can get a bit of a gauge. I mean, you saw a guy like Paul Gallen just steamroll him. Could a guy like Demsey McKean do the same? Anyway, we'll leave it there. So it wasn't a classic, but it was an intriguing fight here. McKean overcomes some adversity, gets the W, advances to 19-0. Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.